learning. All the resources you need to put a website together can be generated with AI within what? 1 hour. True or false?
True.
You just smile now, eh? You just smile. Now that was the one here. Do you know the smart guys? The project I give you, if you are smart, if you go to ChatGPT and write what, develop a responsive navigation bar within 1 second, ChatGPT will write it. Copy it and do what? Paste it in your page, then edit the what? The link, because ChatGPT we don't know whether it's going to be about. We give you hash. So you just change to what? About or dot. Yeah. But sir, it's not free. If you did not come here, if ChatGPT create that code, you don't know how to edit it. So your coming here is just to learn how to edit code. But you start practicing. Your coming here is to learn how to edit code. When you start practicing, not necessarily to write code from scratch. Me, Prosper, I write code from scratch. Are they mad? For this era of AI, what is AI now doing for me? If you cannot supply for me, then it's of no use. But when I'm collecting the money from the customer, I don't let them know that I'm going to use AI. I will even delay them when I'm done for some months so that they will think that I'm still writing code. So that the money that they paid, they will think that the money is working. Because the truth of it is that when you collect 1 million, within the next 3 days, the website is out. Say, ha, this guy, I found. But the truth is that you pay the price. You are coming every day to learn. Is it not? Now, that's where the work will chop now. I mean, there's time to work, there's time to chop. So what I'm saying is that what? Learning is more difficult than what? Practice. You just stay true. Even though it's stressing you, let me tell you what makes you a developer. When you live here now, you're going to be calling yourself that I am a developer, right? If you are asked how a developer reason, do you have the concept? How a developer think, do you have it? It is this training that wired it in you, not that AI. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Now,
if I carry you now, go and train you on WordPress, where you just use a theme and templates, where you just buy already built house and just remove the share there because it's not fun, put your fancy share. You are not a developer. You are not what? A developer. You are an editor. You are an editor. So never feel bad if towards the end and I show us some tricks. Never feel bad then that, sir, why did you people wasted our assistance? Never feel bad, because what we want you to become is what? A developer, not what? An editor. So you must go through the fire, and that is it. So please, let's continue. I believe I've given us a professional word advice. Yes, so you have no reason for dropping. Even though it's difficult, stay true. Even though you are looking like this, you are learning or you may not know. Even though you are looking at the code and you are not able to do it, my brother, you are learning. You can never act strange next time you see it. You can never act like a novice. So please, now officially, we are bringing in what? JavaScript. And I want to encourage us not to be missing classes. It's very, very important. JavaScript, once you miss one class, it will do as if you have missed all the whole classes. Please. Now, let's start with the definition. So just a few things, like I said, just 1 hour class I want to give us. Then we enter the celebrations aspect. Introduction to JavaScript. Introduction to what? JavaScript. Introduction to JavaScript. Now, it is expected that before you start learning JavaScript, you must have graduated from HTML and what? CSS what? Class. The reason we are going to find out very soon that if you are still having issue with HTML, go and settle HTML. If you are still owing HTML, go and settle HTML. If you are still owing what? CSS. Go and settle what? CSS. Don't say because we are entering JavaScript, so you have escaped. You get to know very soon. Let's go with the definition first. Right. JavaScript is a high-level. JavaScript is a high-level, an interpreted programming language. An interpreted what? Programming language that is primarily used for client-side scripting. Underline that, client-side scripting. Are we there? Underline client-side what? Scripting. That is primarily used for client-side scripting on the web or website. Underline on the what? The web or website. Alongside with HTML and CSS. So you can see it now. So it does not work alone. Alongside with what? HTML and CSS. Alongside with HTML and what? CSS. The definition did not say you can do everything with what? JavaScript. Instead, it says what? Alongside with HTML and what? CSS. Let's practically illustrate it. HTML is the language that helps us to add the content, right? The content could be what? The pictures. Could be what? The write-up. Could be the videos. Could be the what? Audio, right? While CSS is the one that determines the presentation of those content. How appealing those content are what? Being what? Presented to the user, right? Now, what is JavaScript? To make those content interactive. So the question is that, can you add interactivity to 0? No. So you can only add interactivity to those content that have been created and styled with what? CSS and HTML. That's why we said what? Alongside. So let's quickly look at some key features of JavaScript. So another word for feature is what? Characteristics, right? Key features of JavaScript. Let's know what and what it possesses. Number one, client-side execution. These are terms we should be acquainted to. Client-side execution. Client what? Side execution. What does that mean? JavaScript runs on a client web browser. That is the meaning of that client-side execution. It means JavaScript runs on the client web browser. So I think I need to break this term down for us to understand properly. When we say client-side, look at this. Every developer should understand these terms. Client-side and what? Server-side. How many of us have heard these two words? Client-side and what? Server-side. They are two different things. They are professional terms. When you go for an interview, instead of them telling you, do you understand front end? They will just use the word what? Do you understand what? The client side of a website. Who is a client? Clients are the visitors that visit your website. So when we say is a client-side dynamic word programming language, what does it mean? It's a language that is used to develop the front end, the visitor's what? End of a website. When we say server-side, when we get to PHP, you will now be hearing what? Server-side. That's what? Back end. Back end. So one of its attributes is what? Client-side what? Execution. And which I said what? The word execution means what? To run. To run. To deploy. Let me use that word, but it's not technically what? Correct. To execute means what? To deploy. Because you can develop an app, then that app must have not been what? Deployed. If you develop an app now, to deploy it means what? It should be ready for people to what? To consume. Upload it on what? Google what? Play Store. For people to what? To download. At that point, you say, oh, you have deployed what? The app. But when it's still running within your local machine, you have not deployed it. You are still what? Developing. So it's a language that when you write code, the code can run on what? Web what? Browser. What is a browser? Please, what is a browser? Developers. Environment. What is a browser? It's what? Content. A browser is an application or a web-based what? Application that convey internet users from one place to what? Another, or let's say what? From one content to another. That is just a kind of layman definition. So a browser is a web what? Application that can only run on what? Web. It's not like Microsoft Office. It's a web application. So for us as developers, browsers are testing what? Testing machine. Let me use that word. We use browser to test our code. Have you not find that when you run HTML code, you use your live server? Where does it put it? In the browser. So the browser is a renderer. It render your code. It render your code. So what we are saying about JavaScript is a scripting language that can be rendered on what? Browser. And what browser can understand the code. Browser can read and interpret what? The code written in what? JavaScript. That's what we are saying. Let's look at the next key feature. I don't think if I've completed that note. I stop at what? Web what? Browser, right? Comma. Allowing for dynamic and interactive web pages. Underline that section. Continuation of that first key feature. I said what? After browser command, allowing for dynamic and interactive web pages. Underline dynamic and interactive what? Web pages. For a website to be interactive, what it means is that what? There is communication. So if you create a website like the one you created, the only communication that we try to forge there is the one we apply through what? CSS animation. If not, the whole of that website will have a static. Things does not move. No life in it. JavaScript is a language that adds life. Without JavaScript presence in your website is static website. And nowadays websites, they are not static. Okay? So that is the meaning of what? Interactive. The dynamic there means what? Things changes per time. What you meet there today can change tomorrow. You can program it that, okay, this particular advert should only come up after 1 hour if the person is still on the page. That is what? The website being what? Dynamic. Then interactivity means what? Communication between one element and what? The other, like the add to cart for e-commerce website. The whole of that is you adding an interactive application, plugging it in your website, and then activating what? Payment what? Gateway. So that people can buy things directly from what? That website. That is going to be some of us projects that you will confirm before you graduate to build an e-commerce website, functional e-commerce website. Like if you to buy a product from that your website, just like if I pay the money, you send the money back if we are testing it.
That would be the website that was said.
Yes, now portfolio.
For my own.
Yes, for portfolio. But remember that if you take that as a project is not just what you learn. You're going to add what? Research to it. You take a project that goes beyond what you learned in the class, you have to add what? Research. It's part of it. Now, let's look at the next key feature. The next key feature of JavaScript is dynamic typing. Dynamic typing. Dynamic typing. And what does that mean as one of the attributes of JavaScript? When we say JavaScript is what? Is dynamically typed programming language. What does that mean? Right. JavaScript is dynamically typed, meaning you do not need to declare variables, types. Underline that variable types. Meaning you do not need to declare variable types before using them. Before using them. Probably in the next class, you understand what is called variable, because that's going to be the topic. And then you now know the type. Because you do not need to what? To declare variable what? Type before using them. That is what makes it what? A dynamically typed what? Programming language. It sorts it out by itself. That is the meaning. So just to explain, you are not writing it down because we are going to take it as a topic. What we are saying is, in programming, the term variable represents a storage that you create within the program memory called cache, just to hold values for you that will be needed later when you are programming. I said I'm going to deal with that in the next class. But I just want to understand so that you know why we are using it here. So for example, if I'm going to write a calculator, or I want to write a program that once the user scroll the page, once they scroll like this, there will be a notification. We are offering what? 10% what? Discount. Register now. And that information will only come up when they scroll. So what do I want them to see when they scroll? I will store it in what? In a variable. Because that did not come as what? The keyword or the inbuilt what? Word in the program. So the only way I can initiate it in the program cache, which is the library now, is to use variable to what? To bring it in. So from that day, it becomes what? Keyword. So whenever I'm programming and I want to call it out, I can now be calling it from what? A storage. Now, what we are saying is that those variables, those containers that will be created by you and I to store different information or data within the program memory can store different types of data. Some can store numbers. Some can store what? String. We are going to know all that probably in the next class. Some can store Boolean. Some can store functions. Okay? Now, it means that when I store a number in a variable, JavaScript will know that what? This is what? Number variable. When I store string in a variable, JavaScript will know that this is what? String what? Variable. Not until I program it that JavaScript, this is string. That is the meaning of what? Dynamically what? That's the meaning of what? Do not need to declare variable what? Type. So once I store number, JavaScript know that, oh, this is number type what? Variable. Are you getting it? At least for now. Let's go to the next key feature. First class functions. The next key feature of JavaScript is what? First class functions. What does that mean? When we say first class, and what? The function you create in JavaScript, they are what? Top notch. Active functions, not kwashiorkor what? Functions. But let's see, look at the meaning of that. JavaScript functions are first class citizens. They are first class what? Citizen, allowing them to be passed as arguments. We are going to know what some of these keywords represent as we proceed. Allowing them to be passed as arguments, returned from functions and assigned to variable. So when we get to function, you understand all this. But just write down the keyword. Allowing them to be passed as arguments, returned from functions and assigned to variables. and assign to variables. So each time I use the word variable at this point, just read it as what? Container that stores what? Values. Are you with me? So that you can understand what we are talking about. Return from functions and assign to what? Variables. What we are typically saying here is that what? You can create a function, a whole function, because functions are what we call advanced data type across all programming languages. Though we have a basic function, we have intermediate function, we have what? Advanced what? Function. But functions are not basic data type. They are advanced data type that are used to group data or information. So for example, if what we are saying here, and I'm trying to relate it so that you can have an understanding of that expression. So I can create a function, let's say in a program that I am writing, I have written a function that will always perform welcome to my website. And that function has a defined name. Now, I am still writing the program, and I'm at a point where I want to display that word, welcome to my website. But I will not remember that, oh, there is a place where I have written a function that should be saying what? Welcome to what? My website. Why will I write another? Since it's the same task, I will just what? Reuse what? That function. Meaning that what? You can take the whole of that function, store it in a variable. So in the course of your programming, then anytime you need the whole action of that function, you just call what? The variable name. That is the meaning of what? Pass into an argument, or as what? A variable. Let's look at the fourth key feature of JavaScript, event-driven. 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 Now, there is one unavoidable function that every programmer that uses JavaScript cannot avoid. It's called what? Event listener. And this is what happens when you create AutoCAD. Let me tell you, the AutoCAD, what is it? It's an online what? Shop representation. Just like the whole of your shop. You build an app using JavaScript, HTML, CSS. And now, you publish the list of products you sell or services you offer. Normally, if I get to your shop, your physical shop, after greeting you, I will now see the product that you have shaded, right? And then I will start asking you, if you did not tag the price, I will start asking you, please, I want to buy a computer. How much is this one, right? You will now respond to me that, okay, this particular one is worth 1 million, right? Now, what you are simply doing is that in your e-commerce website, you are actually creating an app that will represent that human being, that will be giving you what details about the product, that you are representing the sales rep. So the app is doing everything. The app can allow you to make inquiry. That's why if you visit website like Jumia today, you can select the product you want to buy. Then the description of that word product, the smaller image or the bigger image of that product will come up. Then the specification or maybe the features of that product will show. Then the price will also show, right? And then under it, they will now write what? Buy now, right? So once you click on that buy button, it will redirect you to what? To a checkout page. A checkout page is where you must have programmed the payment what? Gateway, where you will now see different what? Payment method, maybe through transfer or through what? Paystack or through what? PayPal or through what? Flutterwave, depending on what the available what? Payment gateway the developer what? Make available. Then once they now click, transaction will happen, and then the money will now be removed from your account and dumped in the what? The owner of what? The product account, and display a dashboard to him. The owner of that website have a dashboard where it's monitoring the sales. But your own is just to buy. Now, what we are saying is that when you click on that button, there is what? Events. Event means action in JavaScript, action that will be triggered, that will determine a reaction. So a JavaScript programmer must have attached an event that will happen to that AutoCAD button that you are clicking. So once you click on it, event listener will call another script that will invoke the words, the checkout word page. And then when you click on the checkout, then that one will now listen to what? Either click or hover, and then call what? The next script. So that is what we mean by what? Event what? Driven what? Event-driven language. For example, another simple example, which probably maybe we will get to in the next class, because we start with these basic things. Now, you can create a button, your form. How many of us have seen what we call modal form? Modal form. There is a form called what? Modal form. That form is a form that when you click on the button, that is when the form will come up. The form you want to fill. When you click on the button, that is where the form will open up. It's not like that form that you created that once somebody gets to the page, you just see the form. This one is a form that somebody must touch a button before the form will now pop up. You will now start filling this. And then when you click on submit, the form will disappear again. So the form can only show up when what? That is JavaScript application. That is when somebody call the form. So you must have written the form somewhere. You now attach an event to that button. So let's write note on that. JavaScript is often used to respond to users' interaction. That's what I'm trying to break down since. JavaScript is often used to respond to users' interactions. Such as click, that is the action. How does the user interact? Is by clicking. Such as clicks, command, hover effects. I believe by now every one of us know what is called hover, right? Hover means just to place the icon, right? The mouse pointer on the element. The command and form submission. When somebody click on submit form, when somebody click on that submit button, then there can be an action. An action like what? Thank you for what? For filling the form. Or successful. These are what? Events. That is why we are not able to do all those things with the form. We are still coming to all these things because now there are some of those things that I skipped because HTML and CSS cannot what? Do. So we have done the part of HTML. Then we will now look at how to validate the form with JavaScript. So then, if you have not finished learning how to create form, Mr. Prosper will just come with the form already made, bang, you know that it will be in the class I'll be writing it to. I will just prepare the form. I will just start teaching you what? How to communicate what? The JavaScript to it. That's why I say go and settle HTML and CSS. So now let's quickly look at, so I've given us how many characteristics of what? JavaScript so far? 4, right? Does it mean that these are the only key feature? No. But these are the main ones that you should know. Now, let's quickly look at another topic. Common uses of JavaScript. We want to look at where can this language be used. Whether is it only for web development? You are going to find out now. Common uses of what? JavaScript. Number 1, web development. So you cannot see why it's related to you, why you are learning it as a web developer. Web development. So we're going to be citing what each of these people will be doing with what? JavaScript. As a web developer, what will you be doing with JavaScript? Right. JavaScript is used to create interactive web pages. That is your priority. And I've explained what interactivity mean. JavaScript is used to create interactive web pages, web applications, and mobile applications. You see, for web developer, these are the areas we are expected to what? To implement JavaScript on. Web pages, interactive web pages, web applications, and mobile application. You know, when we started this program, I told us that there are some of us that when we graduate and you see an advert that says that we need a programmer, sometimes you don't know that you are a programmer because there is this common perception that makes us to feel that it is only those that program OP app that are called what? Programmers. You are a programmer, but your own programming is limited to what? Websites. Now, let's look at another application of what? JavaScript. Front-end development. So this one is still for web. Front-end what? Development. And what does that mean? JavaScript is used to create dynamic and responsive user interface. JavaScript is used to create dynamic and responsive what? User what? Interface. Often with frameworks like React, Angular, Vue.js. The Vue is spelled VUE. Bootstrap. So these are some of the words, the uses of what? JavaScript. So you can see that the language is very, very vast. It's very, very vast. So you just have to identify which area you want to apply. So you learn things that concern what? That area. So I don't distract yourself. But mind you, when we use the word framework, please listen to this explanation. Frameworks are not programming languages. Please get it right. Frameworks are not what? Programming languages. What you are learning here is the language, not framework. But the only framework that is added to your program is Bootstrap. And that Bootstrap is where we are going to be applying the advanced part of what? Java what? Scripts. But as far the basic and the intermediate is concerned, we are going to be writing the code. Now, a framework is this. Listen. A framework is just like a library. When we say JavaScript framework, it means that what? Some of our forefathers in this field who have sat down and looked at the program holistically, that this program is too voluminous. If we don't come up with framework, compile code. That is the right word to describe what? Framework. Compiled what? Code. That is what? An environment where they have compiled code for you. Now, all you need to learn is the language that they use in compiling and the methodologies or the techniques on how to call those what? Functions from that library. That is what you learn. Then you'll not be learning the language. For example, now when we get to Bootstrap, which is the very last aspect before I go to the back end, that Bootstrap is where you implement all your responsiveness, all this responsiveness that you are implementing with at media. You are wasting your time. Any website, those same HTML that you are writing, we have their version in Bootstrap as in H2, H1. So if you are building in Bootstrap, it means that you have to be using those same tags, but you'll be using Bootstrap class's name. You know, when you class elements, you gave it your own name, right? But then you'll be mandated to use what? Bootstrap what? Class. Because it is when you use the Bootstrap class that you can inherit the responsiveness. So as we are calling that HTML, let's say H1, and you use Bootstrap responsive class name, then that element is automatically what? Responsive. So you are no longer going to be doing at media. So everything you are developing there is mobile responsive. In fact, all the devices in the world today, Bootstrap have their what? Responsiveness. So if you graduate from a program like this without learning Bootstrap, it means you are outdated. You are not going to function because it's difficult. Just imagine you are calling H1. You now put at media. You define 700 awards, 64. That is one device. So you have not captured people that will be using iPhone Pro Max 12. You will now be creating different responsiveness for all of them. When will you finish developing the website? But why don't you use Bootstrap, whereby all the responsiveness are captured? So that's the framework. So Bootstrap is just like the framework that has JavaScript compiled code, CSS compiled code, and even what? Templates for implementing projects for customers. A whole website has been built in Bootstrap. Just go and collect it. Not stealing, just go and collect. Collect it, put it in your project, and then edit one or two things. The entire website is ready. That is why I said learning is more difficult than what? Practice. There are so many places where you can get solution. Customer is not always there when you are developing. Thank God for browser that does not even show them our code. God bless browser until they inspect. And how many of them know how to inspect? In case they come across this video, I'm not selling our secret to them. All right. Now, let's look at another use case of JavaScript. Back-end development. Now, you can see, now, your back-end here, we are implementing it with what? PHP. Because PHP is more widely used, but it's not the only back-end language. Even Python now, with the help of Django, some persons are using Python for their back end, not PHP. Some are using JavaScript for their back end, not just front end, but they will now use a server called Node.js. You see, even though we are not training you all, I'm giving you the whole information so that when you leave after learning this one that we have given you, you go and do what? Research. You think that technology ends as training center, that means you are not ready to move forward. In fact, when you graduate, like I always tell my students during presentation, during project defense, I tell them it's not that the program is just starting. You are now a master. You are no longer under Mr. Prosper. You have the privilege of scheduling yourself for different research, take different products, take more challenges that will make you look more solidified. Learning is just 3 hours. If you are offering service, you can be a week, you can be debugging a problem a week. You have not even found a solution. Because service is more difficult than training. When I say service, technology has people that are in training, like me now. I'm in both in some areas. I'm in service. If you bring website contract now and collect it, not just training. Well, there are some persons that have not built any website for anybody, but they are training. They read books. They have not confronted the main challenge that will make them more stronger. Because in service, customer will tell you what they want. It's not like now, as I come to teach now, you are not the one that is telling me what to teach you, right? It's what I feel that I know that I'll come and teach you. But in service, it's not like that. You are the one that said, I don't need your money. You are the one that will tell me, this is what I want. So if it takes you 100 days to give me what I want, that is when I'll pay you. And you have no choice if hungry is wiring you to go and look for ways. Thank God for ChatGPT. Let the customer describe what they want. Carry on like that. Put up for ChatGPT. So you get the solution. Go ahead and start. Listen carefully. Record what the person says he wants. In fact, put it in writing, PowerPoint, in WhatsApp. So you copy it like that. Put it in ChatGPT. ChatGPT to develop this kind of app. Write the code. Sharp. But there are still some places you what? You amend. Because ChatGPT will leave some places. You will not be seeing things like unavailable, link not available. How many of us have seen that before when researching? Nobody. No, that guy saying, yeah, I'll see it. Link not available. That means what? The URL you are supposed to add to that place. ChatGPT does not know where you want to use that code. So you expect that you should know the URL, add it there. Once you add it there, the remaining code will work. So if you don't learn this manual, how will you know what to add? All right, so back end, I think I've explained that, right? I've not explained that, right? Have I explained that back end development? Right. JavaScript can also be used for server side. You can see that the term have changed from what? Client what? Side now. JavaScript can also be used for server side programming with technologies like Node.js. Node.js. Yes, that's what I'm defining now. I say JavaScript can also be used for server-side programming with technologies like what? Node.js. So the question is this. This is an information so that somebody do not intimidate you. For example, now, you are going to be asked when you claim that you know backend. Somebody will ask you, which language, which technology do you use in implementing your backend? If you graduate from here, you are going to say what? You are using what? PHP and what? SQL. These are the back-end languages that you register for here. Now, while there are some places that are training the same program, but they are implementing their backend with what? Node.js. There are also places that are also training the same program, and they are implementing their backend with what? Python. With what? Python framework called what? The Django. So what are you expected to do when you finish our own PHP? You go and start learning another one if you want to duplicate. The same thing you are going to be doing with PHP is what you are going to be doing with what? Node.js, but in a different format. The same with Python. But some person, based on the one you are trained with, that is the one you will know. So, but if you know one and you want to add more, go ahead. Because one thing about technology is what? Advancement is one thing that cannot be what? Avoided. Whether you like it or not, technology will keep what? Advancing. It will get to a point whereby the whole world will not come to concord that, based on the efficiency, is Python. Or is what? Node.js. It's no longer PHP. What will you do if you have learned PHP and go and start sleeping? So once you finish learning one, you start making research and keep advancing. But there is something that I have discovered, that even as much these new ones are coming up, they are still having issue with what? Integration of old system. Let me tell you the challenge that you may not, why NIIT decided to adopt PHP. PHP still have the largest database. What I mean by database? All the websites that have been existing 100 years ago till now, most of them back end were developed with what? PHP. Now, it means that if those companies want to upgrade all the information that they have tracked using PHP as backend, must be integrated into what? The Python for them to what? Continue. Except companies that are just what? Starting. They are the ones that can easily start with what? Any of these new what? Generation what? Back-end languages. So you now see the reason why PHP is because most of those companies, these new languages, have not been able to integrate so that they can upgrade. So they are still running PHP. But the new companies, some of them will look at, Python is the new, is tomorrow and it's today. Let's adopt what? Python. So they all have their advantages and what? Disadvantages. So you just have to look at them and then you can upgrade yourself in case you are in the field, and at a particular point in time, you now hear that is this one that is raining. What do? You switch. You switch. So that is why you have to be making money. Let me sell this idea. You have to be making money. Okay? How many of us want to be making money after graduation? Only few people. Now, let me tell you, what if you are not making money while you are in tech, you know what will happen to you? You oscillate. If you are not selling what you have right now, when what you have right now stop selling tomorrow, you will not have money to upgrade, then you are out of the business. This is a very expensive advice I give to you now. If you feel that you know this web development now, maybe using PHP, and you are so comfortable when a friend comes to you that I want to train me on this, you know, you are my good friend now. Let me just do it for you for 10 naira. You continue to be good. You are there. Before you see that, they say, it's not Node.js, so that is running no longer PHP. And that time now, you are trying to quickly catch up with what? And there's no money. Because you'll be retrained. Then, what I would advise you to do, since you have gotten the certification, and since you have already gotten first-hand training like this, one-on-one, go and buy online courses. You may not need to go to a physical center like this for those upgrades. Online courses. How many of us know Udemy? Can just go and buy online course just to upgrade on only that aspect. Just go there, okay, Udemy what? Node.js backend only. You don't need one-on-one course. But somebody who have not gone through this training, purchase such course, the person will be more confused. So you must know how to upgrade. Save money for the future because it will come. Whether you like it or not, it will come. So where did I stop? We are still on what? Now, the next one is, which is going to be the last one. I've given us 3 so far. Web development, right? Front end, which is still part of web, and then back end, and then game development. There are some persons that will learn JavaScript just for game what? Development, just developing, creating games. So it's not only for you as a web developer. So game development, let's look at what JavaScript can do there. JavaScript is used to create browser-based. That is kind of, you see, not mobile. Anyway, it's good because mobile have browser. You can run browsers. So let's say what? Browser-based game and interactive what? Simulations. Simulations. JavaScript is used to create browser-based games and interactive simulations. Are we together? So what I'm doing today is just the foundation that I'm laying. Probably the next class, we should be able to start what? Practical. I just want us to understand, to have more detail about this particular language. So I don't need to just go. I want to leave this as an assignment for you to complement it. I want to jump to the next topic, right? Research on the benefits, though we have highlighted so many, but just research. The benefit of what? The benefit of learning JavaScript as a web developer. Just research randomly on that. It's something that you can find out. We have also mentioned many of them. Any questions so far? Any question? Any question? Any question? Okay, so if there's no question, the last topic I have for us today is what? Setting up a development environment for JavaScript Scripting, right. Setting up development environment for JavaScripts. Scripting. Setting up a development environment for JavaScripting or JavaScript scripting. Are we together? Are we together? So now, when we started learning HTML and CSS, one of the first things we learned was how to set up our development environment. That took us through creating a project folder, right? And then adding other subfolders, populating the image folder with images, then calling it in Visual Studio Code, then installing extension like live server. All those things fall under setting up development environment. But this is JavaScript. So now we want to learn how to set up our development environment for writing or speaking JavaScript. And that is where I will stop. So right, to code with JavaScript, you must install an IDE. To code with JavaScript, you must install an IDE. You must install an IDE. You must install an IDE. What is the full meaning of IDE? Who can help us with the full meaning of IDE? Integrated development environment. So write it. I don't want to assume that we know it. Write it. Integrated development environment. Which means that an application that provides an interface for writing and executing code, right? So the code could be Python code. It could be JavaScript code. It could be Java code. But these are customized applications for writing and executing codes. So example of the IDE we are using is still Visual Studio Code. In fact, it's Visual Studio Code we are using for all the languages. But remember then I said there are other ones. We have Atom, we have Sublime Text, we have which other one again? We have PyCharm for writing Python code, and the rest of them. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, remember I said the first step is you must install an IDE. I'm skipping it because we have already done that, right? You know how to just go to Google, type download Visual Studio Code. Is an open source. You don't pay for it, it's free. Okay? But it's not free because you subscribe data, right? So now let's create a folder. So the next step is create your project folder. Please write the step. I want to properly acknowledge them again. I don't want to assume because I know some persons join in between. Create a project folder. So let me say this folder is for learning JavaScript. For learning JavaScript. Okay. Then after that, then open the the IDE, open the IDE, Visual Studio Code, and install the project folder in the development environment. Open the IDE, the Visual Studio Code, and install the project folder in the development environment. In the development environment. All right. So how do we call it? We simply go to what? File, right? And then go to what? Folder. And then I will navigate to the directory where I created that folder, desktop, and then look for the name of the folder, which is what? Java what? Script. So just touch it, make sure that the name is showing here, and click on what? Select. Automatically, we have the folder installed in the IDE. All right. Now, the next step is to create the render document, the JavaScript render document. Write it, I'll tell you what that means. To create JavaScript what? Render documents. I want to explain that to us. So what do I mean by JavaScript what? Render what? Document. Listen. You write the scripts on HTML content. And that HTML content will be rendered, will be displayed to user through what? The browser. So you don't display JavaScript direct. You have to display them through a container, which is called what? The HTML content. It's just like you saying that you go to CSS and right click and say you want to open with Live Server. How many of us have ever done that? Has it ever worked for you? Those CSS code that you have written in CSS file, you will always go back to HTML and what? Render. Which means that what? Those appearance, those color, those sizes, they are rendered through what? Another what? Content. Through the browser. So even as we are going to be writing our JavaScript, they will be in their separate file, just like the way you have your CSS, but we'll be using the HTML to output their what? Actions. So when I say render file, which part do you think that should be? HTML. God bless you. So I will click that, I will create that HTML file. Remember, I will write what? Index.what?.html. So this file that I've just created, what is it doing for me? It's just for me to output the action, the interactivity, which will have been created in what? JavaScript. Because I'm going to add like maybe H1, then I will now say in JavaScript, select H1 and make it to bounce, for example. So which means that what? The H1 tag is the element that is what? Conveying or outputting the JavaScript what? Actions. So which must be created in HTML file. So of course, let me start by activating my HTML default file structure. So here, I will just say, okay, welcome to JavaScript training. To JS training. So let's say, for example, I will just say what? H1, welcome. Welcome to web training. Now, HTML have been given this content. So if I open it now on a browser, it's going to display what? That content. Meaning that it has rendered its own content. I'm going somewhere. Just make sure that you stay tuned. Welcome to what? Web training. Now, but I am saying that I can write this content in JavaScript and then use this element to display it. So it means that what? I will not tell HTML, you are no longer the one that will display the content. I will send the content to you from my JavaScript code. So you just be there as empty bucket. I will throw in the content, then you will display it. We'll get to know more of this in the next class. So I will not create variable and store what? Welcome to what? My web training. So I will not reference the variable. I will not throw the variable inside what? The H1. So the H1 will now output what is inside the variable through the what? The browser. So you cannot see how you now be adding. You cannot see the connection. You can see the reason why I said you cannot program just with what? JavaScript. So you must create the content, then create the action in JavaScript. Then those actions will be built on those content. Then when those content are launched in the browser, then the content will react that action, which must have been fused in through the what? JavaScript. Ordinarily, this content, if I did not use CSS animation, it will not move. So I can go to JavaScript and create some effects, bouncing effects. Maybe the letter will be dropping one letter. W will fall first, then the other will come. Then, but all those functions will be created in JavaScript. So now, this is HTML file. We are still on what? Setting up what? A development what? Environment for JavaScript. Now, why did we create this one as part of the step? Because we need a renderer. We need a render. We need a software. We need a component that will render it. Now, we will not ask ourselves whether we want to pass in, we want to communicate JavaScript inline to this element or what? Internal to this same element or what? External. External means what? JavaScript file will be created separately, right? And also connected to this. Inline means what? You are writing the JavaScript directly in that what? HTML what? Code line. Internal means what? You are writing the JavaScript file in the same HTML file, but in a different what? Section. That same concept of CSS. So, but the one I'm going to teach us, which is the best practice, is the what? External. So I'm starting with external. Then in the next class, I'm going to teach us what? Internal and what? Internal and inline, because those ones we have to attach some practicals. So remember, you are still writing the steps. So the next step is create the JavaScript file. You make sure you write your step because you will do this before the next class. Create the JavaScript what? File or external file. Use the word external file. So which means that what? The HTML render file should be separated from what? The JavaScript what? Action what? File. So how do we do that? Look up. So I'm going to create, if you are working with your REAP project, that project that we are on before, we created a separate folder called what? JS. In fact, let me go and create so that we can master it at once. So this folder now, this is your project folder. So we have to right click here and make what? A folder called what? JS, just like the way we did for CSS, right? Since we want to go with what? External. So now if I go back to my development environment now, so I have to connect. So I have to come here to create that JavaScript script file now. Not directly in this what? Parent what? Folder now. Then before I click here, then the file will now be maybe let's say index dot what now? The extension is what? JS. Just like the way you have what? CSS, HTML. That's the extension. Then you click outside. So this is the JavaScript file. So this is where you'll be speaking the whole of your JavaScript, and then you will not still be what? Selecting element either by ID. Now, all these are we are not be using ID. We are just be using class, right? By name. Because we are reserving that term for JavaScript. One of the most convenient way of JavaScript what? Element modeling is what? With ID. with ID. So which means that if I want to select this H2, H1, I must come here and say what? ID, I'll say what? Demo. I'll say demo. So which means that I will use this demo to select the element that I want to pass in what? The variable, story what? Welcome to my web training. So it is the ID that JavaScript will use to identify what? Which element will render what? The action. So now let's connect. Hope you are writing your step. So your next step is what? Connect or link the JS file with the render file, which is the HTML. Link the JS file with the render file, which is what? The HTML. So how do we link them? So I'll go to what? To the HTML. Make sure you are writing your sub steps. Go to the HTML file. You know, even the CSS, when we're linking, where were we linking from? From HTML, right? Good. So you come back to HTML. Now, this in JavaScript, you cannot come here and say link. That is for CSS. You cannot come here now and say what? Link. No. JavaScript has its own linking. It's part of what we are learning. It's part of the setup. Now, you now come before the body closing tag. There is a tag for linking JavaScript, which is called what? Script what? With source. This is how you connect external JavaScript. Please, not in the head. Now, listen. This is a core programming language that is placing priority that is the senior man to HTML, is the senior man to CSS. If you write any JavaScript before HTML, when you open it, JavaScript will overwrite what? HTML. That is what? Before it displayed what itself, it must have deleted what? The HTML. That's the reason, in case you are wondering, sir, why are you bringing this here? Why can't this come before what? The H1. If it come before H1, JavaScript is placing precedency that what? HTML element must be rendered first before me. I am the senior brother. How can HTML come after me? It should come before me, then I will be the one to end it. Because my actions are expected to what? To be deposited on the HTML. So the HTML element should be visible first before my action can display. Are you getting me? You are saying that this HTML by default, it will be like this. When somebody gets to the website, the element, let's say welcome, will remain like this. And then you are saying that after 2 minutes, this element should display like this, right? It means that what HTML display should come first, right? Before the JavaScript can act on it. So if you now say that JavaScript first, that means what? JavaScript will have finished acting before the HTML. So that is why it will delete it, that no, you are not meant to come after me. You are meant to come before me. That is the reason why we are linking it here. Now, what you will now do now is that you now come here and slash and go to what? The JavaScript folder and then pick the file. So what I've done now, I have connected them. Okay, so just a demo, which is where I'm going to stop after that demo. I will continue from there. We just finished setting up what? The file. Now I want to test it to know whether there is communication. That is only when you can say, okay, you have set up what? An external what? JavaScript what? Environment. Now let's go to JavaScript now, for example, and declare variable. I will start with what? Variable. And then in JavaScript, please don't write this. It's the topic I'm going to start with in the next class, just to verify. I'll say let's name. Let's name, or let's say what? Let's first name, comma, middle name, name, then end it. Okay, let's this. Then if I press enter, hope I was in the file safe. Let me see what I did here. Okay. Now let's first name this. Now I will not say where what you did now is just to like, okay, I created container without putting content inside. Now I will not say, okay, where first name Don't write to. First name is going to store what? My name, Prosper. You get to know all this in the next class. Then I must end the code where my middle name, you can see that once you have typed it, JavaScript have acknowledged as what? As a keyword. So it start popping it up for you to click on. Because you have registered it before as what? A variable. Now, this variable will store what? Because it's a string, you can use single quotes or double quotes. I will say what? Hello. And then I must also end with what? Semicolon. Now, I want to look at the logic now. This particular name is what you will have written here. Prosper. Just pay attention. Nobody should write. Follow instruction. Now, you will have just rendered this Prosper with this, but you are saying that no, I am storing it. Prosper is already stored in a variable in JavaScript. So I will only use you to display it as a container because JavaScript cannot display itself. So now, JavaScript will now say that, okay, for me to pass this, to send this name to what? To this element, to render through the browser, then you must tell me the display method, which you are also going to learn. So I will say what? Document dot get element by what? ID. Because this element, you ID it with what? Demo. Are you flowing? So now, by ID is a function. Then what is the ID? The ID is what? Demo. So automatically, what you have told JavaScript is that what? Select what? Select H1. Select H1 and use it to render HTML element dot HTML dot inner. HTML is a property which is used to store HTML element. So what we are saying that what? The whole of this element, collect it, identify with demo, then store it in a variable. Store it in this, then equals to first name, F what? Name. Then I end it here. Logically, I have already sent what? Prosper to what? To this. Now, if I want to output it now to see the result, I will not output it here, right click here. No. You have to go to what? To the HTML and do what? Right click and then render. Then you will see Prosper. Prosper. Did you see it here now? I sent Prosper from where? JavaScript to H1. The work of that H1 is just to what? To carry to receive the variable value. Are you following? So which means that I've just confirmed that what? My environment is set up. So the next class we are good to go. So your assignment is to set up what? See what you do. Copy this code. Copy this code. Just emulate it just to confirm when you are done setting up.